to and how it pertains to you. Verse 20, and Noah began to be a farmer, and he planted a vineyard. Then he drank of the wine and was drunk and became uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. Almost all commentaries hammer Noah in these particular verses, particularly for getting drunk. The terms sin, shame, weak, imperfect, and many others that I read are used. Or commentaries will say that Noah didn't know that he'd get drunk if he drank wine, and so they show him as naive in an attempt to relieve him of the guilt that they feel that he bore in what he did. But I got to tell you, none of the commentaries get to the heart of the matter, nor do they align with the account of what Paul says in the New Testament about drinking. In the 1 Corinthians chapter 11, speaking of the Lord's Supper, Paul says these words, "For in eating, each one takes his own supper ahead of others, and one is hungry and another is drunk." And that means literally they were drunk at the Lord's Supper. What? Do you not have houses to eat and drink in? And when he says to eat and drink, and he was talking about alcohol. Although it may show poor decision making, the problem here is not that Noah was drunk. Paul notes that the people at the Lord's Supper were drunk, but he never rebukes them for it. And Noah was in his own house, which is exactly what Paul says for the believers in Corinth to do. So we can't fault Noah for what he was doing. It is, in my opinion, and actually biblically sound, it is unacceptable to pick and choose verses for cross-referencing in order to suit one's own personal convictions about a matter, like being drunk or even drinking alcohol, and then to disregard the verses that you disagree with. The Bible, I said this earlier, is a unified whole, and what it proclaims as acceptable is to be treated in that manner, whether we personally like it or not. Having said that, and before I go on, I am not trying to promote drunkenness. That's not what I'm doing here. What I'm doing is going where the Bible leads us and not taking the Bible where I want it to go. The issue in these verses has absolutely nothing to do with Noah's state of drunkenness or his nakedness. He was in his own home, exactly like Paul said he should be. The issue has to do with the actions of Ham, and they are the entire purpose of why Canaan was introduced into this pivotal verse, which we looked at just a couple minutes ago. Back a few sermons, I said that one of the most important of all Bible rules is to not let our attention get sidetracked or our analysis swayed by our own personal biases or what we already believe. Noah was out there, he was minding his own business, and his son Ham did what was disgraceful. But again, like the earlier verse, it brings Canaan into the picture, and Ham, the father of Canaan. Once again, despite what Ham did, the relevance is on Canaan. It's not on Ham, even though Canaan is not included in this account at all. He didn't do anything to his father, to his grandfather, and yet he is included in here. Ham saw the nakedness of his father, and he told his two brothers. And we can infer that his words were more than just, "Dad is lying naked inside of his tent." Instead, it seems that Ham made light of the matter and may have treated Noah with either contempt or with levity. In other words, at a minimum, Ham was making jokes about his own father to his brothers. But his brothers treated their father with a decent and reverent and obedient respect. Instead of joining Ham in his immoral conduct, they took a garment, they laid it on both of their shoulders, and they went backward and they covered their father's nakedness. And while they did, they had their faces turned away. In the book of Habakkuk, we read a very, very similar verse to what occurred there. "Woe to him who gives drink to his neighbor, pressing him to your bottle, even to make him drunk, that you may look on his nakedness." We can act actively or we can act passively in a perverted manner. But either way, the Bible condemns these type of actions. God calls us to holy living and to act in a manner which maintains both our dignity and the dignity of other people. And this